All you need is faith in God. This gentleman began to tell a story. He said, Brother Schambach, I was stricken with spinal meningitis. I was totally crippled from head to toe. And I'm looking at a man that's in perfect health. And I knew something happened. And I was grasping hold of every word. He said, I had it made. I worked for the federal government. I had money in the bank. I had a good balance in the savings account as well as the checking account. My house was 3/4 paid off. Never been sick a day in my life. And many of you can identify with this. But he says, when all of a sudden trouble struck, spinal meningitis paralyzed him, hospitalized for over 3 months. He had the finest kind of health insurance, but it wasn't enough to pay the bill. He started taking it from the checking and the savings account, and it began to dwindle. It got so bad they called in specialists from all over the world. He had to get the equity out of his home, mortgaged to the neck, borrowed money. The balance in the bank was 00. On top of that, he lapsed into a coma as a result of arthritis creeping into every joint, the painful kind of arthritis, rheumatoid. And he could not stand the intensity of the pain, and he lapsed into a coma and stayed in that condition for over 3 months. Now, he told me this story, and I'm catching every word. I want to find out how he got delivered. He said, even though I was in a coma, I knew what was taking place around me. They called in my priest to give me the last rites of the church. That's how bad it was. Extreme unction, it's called. They gave him the last rites. He said, I wanted to let the priest know I understood what he was doing, but he said I couldn't even flicker an eyelash. If any of you minister to people in hospitals, don't give up because they're in a coma. They may not be able to communicate back, but you can get through to them as you minister. And he said when he finished with that rite, he folded the paraphernalia. I could hear the suit or the briefcase close, and he said, I heard the door shut. And he said when the door closed, all of a sudden, another priest walked through the wall. There's something different about this priest. The priest that just left had his collar on backwards, and he was dressed in black. The priest that come through that wall was dressed in a long white flowing robe. And he said he walked over to my bed. I didn't know who he was, but he leaned down over my frame that just got ready for the grave. And he called me by my name and put his lips to my ear. And he said, you don't have any trouble. All you need is faith in God. And I grabbed a hold of that, and I've been using it for 32 years. I borrowed it from this man. And he said, as I lay there, I'm wondering, I don't have any trouble. What kind of crazy priest is this? If I don't have any trouble, what is trouble? Spinal meningitis, paralyzed from head to toe, spinal meningitis, rheumatoid arthritis, bank account 00 balance. The priest just got me ready for the grave. If I don't have any trouble, what's trouble? But he said he answered every question I ever had. Still bent over my body with his lips to my ear. He said, I am Jesus of Nazareth. And I am healing you now. When I walk out of this room, I want you to go in that restroom and shave yourself and get dressed. and go to the first bookstore you find and buy a Bible and begin reading in St. John's Gospel, and you'll find the way to eternal life. I'm so glad he didn't tell him to go to a church somewhere. He'd have got confused on the journey to heaven. But he told him to go to a bookstore and buy a Bible. And he said he turned around and walked through that wall. And he said, I awakened out of a deep sleep. Now listen to what he said. This is a part that I want to instill into your heart. He said, I wanted to be obedient to the commands that he gave me. So he said, I pulled that thing out of my arm. They were feeding him dextrose, that sugared water. He pulled it out, and he said, he told me to go in and shave, so I wanted to do it. And he said, I was in there shaving, and he said, it felt like I just ate 4 T-bone steaks over 6 months. Hadn't eaten a thing. Mouth was all raw because he's never used it, but now he's totally healed. And the nurse is tippy-toeing in because the other priest went out the other door, you know. And she knew that he gave him the last rites, and she came in to pull the sheet up over him. And when she got to the bed, it was she thought maybe he got translated quick. And she happened to see him in the restroom, and she went in there. He's in there shaving and singing. She put his arm under his arm. Don't you know you're dying? The priest gave you the last rites. Get back in the bed. He looked at her and said, cool it, honey. Another priest came in and gave me the first rites all over again. I'm not going to die, but I'm going to live. Hallelujah. And he looked at me and he said, Brother Schambach, why did he go through the wall? Why didn't he use the door? I said, what God did for you, and that's the most stupid question you can find. I said, my God, man, he is the door. God can make a door wherever you are. In a hospital room, I'm talking to you watching television.
I want to speak to you today from the subject, water walking faith. Water walking faith. All of us in here have faith. The question is, what kind of faith do you have? Some of us have water sinking faith. That means every time it gets rough, we start to sink. But I want to talk to you today about water walking faith. You see, my favorite character in the Bible next to Jesus Christ himself is Peter. I love me some Peter. Peter was bold, he was audacious, he was confident. He had some tremendous successes, yet he had some debilitating defeats. This is the man that rebuked Jesus after Jesus said he was going to die and rise again after 3 days. Jesus told Peter, "Get behind me, Satan." Now, most of us couldn't have handled that. I mean, can you handle God himself calling you Satan? But not Peter. He blew it, but he didn't get so discouraged where he just stopped doing ministry. A lot of us would have given up. That's what I like about Peter. Then in the Garden of Gethsemane, when they were arresting Jesus, it was Peter who took out his sword and cut the soldier's ear off. Jesus was always having to clean up stuff that Peter did. Then it was Peter who emphatically pledged his allegiance to Jesus. He said, "Jesus, I got your back. I got your back, Jesus. I'm not going anywhere." And then a little bit later, he denied Jesus 3 times. That's the Peter I'm talking about. But the thing that I admire most about Peter was that he was the only human being that's ever walked on water. That he did something so miraculous that nobody else has ever done. So today I want to inspire you. Today I want to encourage you. Today I want the Holy Spirit to stir your heart, to let you know that you can do something great for God. That you don't have to be an average Christian. That you don't have to live a mundane Christian life. And I can guarantee you there's probably something in your life where God is pushing you out into the water. And you're either going to, as you'll see in a minute, you're either going to have to stay in the boat, or you're either going to hold on to the boat, or you're going to get out and you're going to walk on water. It's your choice. I submit to you that in order to do something great for God, you have to have water walking faith. Water walkers recognize the presence of God. Water walkers recognize God's presence. If you want to walk on water, you better know who God is, and you better recognize his presence. Peter recognized Jesus in a storm, and that's the problem with most of us. Most of us don't really recognize Jesus when we're in the midst of a storm. All the other disciples were scared. They had no recognition of what was going on. Peter was the only one that recognized Jesus. It takes the eyes of faith to recognize Jesus in the storm. Number two, water walkers sense a call from God. They have a deep sense that God is calling them and beckoning them to do something great, stirring something in their heart. In other words, they don't want to be average. They don't want to just come to church and go home and go to work and do little stuff with their kids and their family, a mundane life. They feel like they were put here for a purpose and for a reason. And they want to live that thing out. I submit to you that a lot of us say we trust Jesus. A lot of us talk about trusting Jesus. A lot of us sing about trusting Jesus. But will you really put yourself in a position on purpose where you have to say, Lord, I'm all yours. You tell me what to do, Lord, and I'll do it. Most of us don't put ourselves in that position, and most of us don't even want to be in that position. So we have to allow Jesus to talk to us. So this was a sign of Peter's surrender to God and his total obedience to God. So he tells them to come to him on the water. He says, Jesus, I want to come to you on the water. Well, isn't it interesting that the water was Peter's problem? So the very thing that he was scared of and everybody else was scared of, Peter's saying, well, I'm going to walk to you on the very thing that everybody else is scared of, which is the water. Maybe Jesus is calling you to walk on water, but you're looking at the waters and you are just scared. You're just scared. You see, God doesn't only want you to recognize his presence and sense his call, but the true test of whether you are a water walker is the next part of this verse, and that is whether or not you get out of the boat. That is the true test, because you can sing about it and pray about walking on the water all you want to. You can talk about doing stuff great, but if you're going to stay in the boat, if you're going to remain a boat potato, that means that's a person who just stays in the boat. Then you can't walk on water stuck in your boat. Which brings me to point number 3. And this is my testimony right here. Water walkers leave their comfort zone in order to fulfill their destiny. And so, in other words, you got to get out of the familiar in order to do something great for God. Oftentimes, God will push you out of what is comfortable to you to get you to do something that is effective for his kingdom. So let me ask you an important question. What is your boat? What is your boat? Your boat is anything that represents safety and security to you apart from God. Your boat is whatever is keeping you so comfortable that you don't want to give it up, even if it is keeping you from joining Jesus on the waves. So in other words, all of us have a boat. And that boat is that thing that you don't want to leave. That boat is that thing that you're holding on to. Your boat is that thing that makes you feel comfortable. But Jesus is saying, in whatever area he's saying this to you, and I guarantee you there is an area, that if you're building a relationship, a dynamic relationship with Christ, he's going to continually call you out on the water. And you're going to have to make a decision whether you're going to hold on to the side of the boat and stay comfortable with everybody else. By the way, the other disciples were in there. Or if you're going to step out on the water.